Hello, today we're going to be talking about how to improve your ability to stick to slopers and open hand holds. The sticky style is something that everyone's been talking about recently, especially with climbers like Serrato Onraku dominating on the World Cup circuit. So I decided to try to break it down into 5 categories of how you can improve your climbing in this style. So let's get into it. The first thing that I want to talk about when it comes to being sticky is your skin. I've recently joked that the top 3 attributes to a good comp climber are technique, strength, and skin, with skin coming in ahead of things like mobility and balance, which seems ridiculous, but I'm starting to think that it's not a joke anymore. If you have dry, glassy skin, grabbing slopey fiberglass holds and macros pretty much feels like grabbing the clear no-tex holds. You can never feel confident that you won't dry fire, and most of the time you'll end up back on the mats looking at your skin. If your skin is too sweaty, then you'll have bad friction for the opposite reason, and your skin will lack durability, and you'll probably end up bleeding by the end of the comp. If you've ever had to tape up during a comp, you know that this is pretty much the worst case scenario. This goes both ways though. When your skin is in prime condition, not dry and glassy, but also not overly sweaty, every textured hold feels like a jug. The right routine to get your skin to reach this state is different for every person, but what I've learned as somebody with skin that tends to lean more on the drier side is that if my skin is a bit dry and glassy, using heavily moisturizing products overnight, and in the most extreme cases, even a couple drops of pure glycerin on the fingertips overnight can help reverse dryness and glassiness quickly. If your skin is overly sweaty, using products with antiperspirants in them, like Rhino Dry or Rhino Performance, can also be helpful. I don't have as much experience with this since my skin is usually drier, but when my skin is very sweaty, doing this maximum of 1 night in a row helps me without overly drying out my skin. However, once you get your skin to a state that you're happy with, leave it alone. Using too many products on your skin constantly can cause other weird issues that you don't want to have. Just do the minimum necessary to maintain a good state for your skin and be on top of it, but don't overuse skin products. Let's talk about grip position. When it comes to open hand climbing, a lot of people just grab the holds and don't think too much about it. But being intentional about how you choose to grab slopers and pinches and knowing what your options are can be incredibly helpful in some cases. On most open hand holds, there's going to be some way that you can get your thumb involved. The most common way to do this is just pinching the opposing side of the hold. Since climbing holds come out from the wall, there's almost always a way to do this. Something else that can be incredibly helpful in certain situations is what people have been calling full sloping. This is when you bring your thumb up onto the texture of the sloper that you're grabbing to get more leverage on your fingers and have them almost in a crimp position. Of course, there will also be situations where using your thumb is difficult and unnecessary, but it's something that is always a good idea to keep in mind. As you focus on using open hand holds in more intentional ways, you'll also start to learn what the best spots are on certain macros and how you like to grab them, which can be a huge advantage when you see those holds inevitably in competitions. Okay, let's talk about tactics. I used to go with the mentality that if I was strong enough, I would do the boulder, and if I wasn't strong enough, I wouldn't. But now I'm a huge believer in tactics. If you aren't employing tactics to maximize friction, especially in hot and humid conditions, I think that you're doing yourself a bit of a disservice. Unless your skin is in a super dry and glassy state, I think liquid chalk is a cheat code. I default to the alcohol-free liquid chalk from Friction Labs between attempts, but if my skin is feeling especially sweaty or I'm in an especially humid environment, I'll use the liquid chalk with 80% alcohol. If you hold your hands under the fan while your liquid chalk dries, the moisture from the liquid chalk combined with the air from the fan will give your hands a cool feeling, and this will temporarily help with friction on your next attempt. During comps, they don't let you bring a fan out onto the mats, but you can achieve a similar effect by waving your hands in the air while the liquid chalk dries in between attempts. Another tactic I'll use sometimes for Sengo in training, or maybe before I go out to my first boulder for a comp, is washing your hands in cold water and then doing the normal liquid chalk routine after that. And just having washed your hands in cold water gets rid of all the layers of excess dried liquid chalk and temporarily makes your hands cold. Technique is probably the most important element of the sticky style, but it's also not something that you can really teach or learn with words or over a YouTube video. Everybody always has room to improve in understanding how to generate and stop the swing on sloping holds. The best advice I can give to work on this is just watching the best climbers in the world at this style climb things at their limit. Watching people like Yanya and Serrato climb power boulders at their limit is probably the best display that I've seen of near perfect technique in this style. But ultimately, technique is something that's built over time with repetition and muscle memory. Another element of sticking to holds that I just can't leave out is pure hand strength. Hand strength is related to your finger strength on crimps, but it's also its own thing. The fastest improvements that I've been able to see in my hand strength have always come from consistent training on the spray wall and consistent spray wall campusing. The more you climb on really bad holds that have no in-cut, the stronger your hands are going to get in those positions, and the more comfortable you're going to get using those holds. Ultimately, this will lead to you being able to do harder moves on worse holds, which is always the goal. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know in the comments if you like this style of video. Also, make sure to leave a comment if you have thoughts, questions, or think I missed anything related to this topic.